It's All Things Considered, and I'm Dave Lawrence. This weekend, Herman's Hermits, starring Peter Noone, are at the Blue Note. Peter's a strong and long connection to Hawaii, too. He's a guy who got his start in show business when he was just a kid, acting on the British TV soap opera Coronation Street. And he has gone on to play starring roles in Aladdin, Sinbad, Pirates of Penzance, and many other stage productions on TV. And he's got a lot of stories to tell, I imagine, as we welcome him now with a huge mahalo. Peter.
Thank you for the huge mahalo, as they say in Manchester.
And it's certainly a word that you're familiar with over your long history. And I'll save, I have this listener, Steve, the mystery emailer, Peter, and I'll run some of that by you later. Your history
great.
In the island.
I've got a great memory, so I should remember most of it.
On that note of a great memory, at 15 years old, you got the Hermits gig. And this is after being on that UK soap Coronation Street. Explain how, as a youngster, you got both into the music and the acting so early.
Well, I was very fortunate because I was sent to a place called the Manchester School of Music. There was an acting class, a speech elocution class, and there was the music class. And I joined all the classes. I wanted to be an entertainer. What happened was a man came from the local studios, which had just opened, Granada Studios. Until that day, it had always been the BBC and nothing else. They were looking for a 12-year-old boy who played the piano. And I got the job and I got in the union. So then every time they were looking for a kid, I was called. And I got lots and lots of jobs. And they paid me good money. And I had a band. We were called the Cyclones. And I would reinvest my income from being a TV star into trying to put what I called a rock and roll group together. It grew from that, really. That was about age 12 or 13. And, of course, as you know, all those groups go through stages and name changes. And over the course of 3 years, we put 100,000 English miles on our van that I bought. And we bought lots of good equipment. The equipment and the van was so good that people thought we were much better than we really were. Oh, they're doing really well. But that was money from the TV show. And one day we went to see the Beatles. Me and one of the guys, we were at my grandmother's house and we heard this band sort of tuning up and we crossed two fields. And there in the second field in the middle on a stage about 6 inches high were the Beatles. And the guy who was with me quit show business when he saw them. But I was kind of inspired. I go, you see, if you really practice really hard, and from that moment, I wouldn't employ anybody in my band. It's kind of ridiculous, a 14-year-old boy employing sort of other people, but you couldn't be in my band if you wouldn't quit your day job or your school job. And I got a 20-year-old guitar player, Derek Leckenby, who quit Manchester University. I got Keith Hopwood, who was a telephone engineer, and he quit. And Carl Green was already in the band. He was an engraver. Me and the guys would clean windows in the daytime and we would sell programs at Manchester United Football Club because we had a kind of persistent dream. Did you just kind of fade out from Coronation Street, or was there a point where you realized, I can't do both? Well, worse than fade out, what happened in the sitcom, as it was a nighttime soap opera. My mother and father got divorced and they sent me off to Australia with the mother. My father in the show stayed in the show for 30 years. And the show remained number one for all those 30 years without me in it. When we made it as Herman's Hermits, they tried to get me back on there, and I just didn't have the time. One of the cool things about your band, it looks like half of Led Zeppelin at one point or another helped out Herman's Hermits. They wanted to. John Paul Jones did. He did the arrangements for us for years. We tried to get him in the band. He came on one tour with us, but he had that Led Zeppelin thing that he was waiting to go to. Right. He did the arrangement for There's a Kind of Hush and No Milk Today. And the reason was that when you were successful in those days, everybody wanted to be involved with you in some way, maybe write a song with you. And it's interesting because recently I was talking about Elvis Presley and I met him in Honolulu. And during the interview that I did with Elvis Presley, it's revealed that Herman's Hermits is on a 360-day world tour. So in 1965, we did 360 concerts. So you better bet that when we got to the studio, we needed all the help we would get. Incredible. We would drive overnight. We'd fly back from Los Angeles from making a movie or something incredible for MGM. And we would drive in England and drive in the fog to Hull. And then after the show, we would get the train back to London, arrive at the recording studio at 6 o'clock in the morning, and walk into the studio as the Animals were leaving, and Jimmy Page and Vic Flick and all those guys were called in. But everybody was like that. It's like we would go to Abbey Road and we'd have a session booked, and Paul McCartney's in the studio too, and we can't kick him out, can we? He's one of the Beatles. And I said, well, how long has he been in there? 20 hours.
Whoa.
He spent 20 hours on his own fixing something.
Well, you were pretty hardworking yourself, as you just detailed, with that wild tour schedule. And thanks to Steve, the mystery emailer, August 15th, 1965, Herman's Hermits making their Hawaii debut, Blaisdell Arena.
And we saw Tom Moffat. We met Elvis. I mean, it was just incredible.
Yep. After their concert, Peter and the other members stay in Hawaii for a short vacation. Elvis Presley was here filming Paradise Hawaiian Style. Tom Moffat knew that 17-year-old Peter was a big fan of Elvis. Tom arranged for Peter to meet Elvis on the movie set at the Polynesian Cultural Center. When Peter arrived for the meeting, Colonel Parker presented him with a letter typed on his personal stationery welcoming Herman's Hermits to Hawaii on behalf of Elvis.
Can you imagine? I mean, I met Elvis Presley. I mean, everybody in England wanted to meet Elvis Presley. The Beatles had met him a little bit earlier. And it was pretty scary because I met him and my sister had said, you know, you've got your email guy who sends you questions.
Right.
My sister told me to ask him questions. She goes, so I said, well, what shall I ask him? And she said, ask him, does he dye his hair? So all through the interview, I'm looking at Elvis's hair. And I have to say this without any fear, that he was the most handsome guy I'd ever seen in my life. He was made up to go on stage as Elvis.
Did you ask him if he dyed his hair?
No, I couldn't. I didn't do. You could see he did. You could tell he did.
He did dye it, you're saying?
Oh, I'm sure he did, yeah.
You also came with some great acts. In 66, in the summer of 66, you came to do a sold-out show with the Animals. And then in 67, September 9th, 1967, Herman's Hermits headlined another big show at the Blaisdell Arena. This time, the opening act was The Who. And it says during their last song, The Who set off smoke bombs and destroyed their instruments.
We always took a band that we liked on the tour. First tour, I think we took Wayne Fontana and the Mindbenders. The second one, we took the Animals. The third one, we took the Hollies. The fourth one, we took The Who. We always took somebody that we liked. We were big fans of The Who. And when it says they set off smoke bombs and broke their instruments, they didn't break any instruments. They broke amplifiers because we'd been given the amplifiers for free. So we gave The Who, I think it was £500. We'll give you 500 quid and all the gear you can break. And they broke as much as they could, you know.
And then before we wrap it up, many big names that you've interacted with through the years, but early 70s solo song, Oh You Pretty Things, written by David Bowie, who played piano on it.
Yeah, you know, he wanted Herman's Hermits to record a few of his songs, and he was pretty skint at the time. He didn't have a lot of money. Mickey Most wanted me to record them all, and I think it gave him a loan to pay his rent and stuff. And we went in the studio. We did some fantastic stuff. I went on the radio and everything. I was promoting David Bowie like no one had ever promoted. He's the next Paul McCartney. He is absolutely brilliant. Then we did Top of the Pops. One Thursday, we get called to do Top of the Pops, which is a big deal in Britain, you know. So it's my first solo single. It's not Herman's Hermits anymore. It's just Peter Noone. I get Top of the Pops, and it's very exciting, but you have to use the people on the show. If you want to pantomime the song, if you want to sing to the track, the people who played on the record need to be on the show. Right. So we had to call David and say, we're on Top of the Pops tonight. Get there at 4 o'clock, one run through. And David showed up in a dress. You know, now we got Oh You Pretty Things with one of the Hermits in a dress.
That's so...
Pretty ahead of our time, you have to admit.
Totally ahead of your time.
We did one show. We did a Royal Command performance. And we made the Hermits dance. And they'd never been dancers. They didn't want to dance. I think it's like 1971. And we pulled it off in a Royal Command performance with an orchestra playing, and the Hermits had to dance, and they were brilliant. Did If I Was a Rich Man and Name and all this.
Wow. If I Was a Rich Man from Fiddler on the Roof?
Yeah.
And Royal Command performance, does that mean in front of the Queen?
Yeah.
That was the first of many meetings with the Queen, or was that it?
No, that was it, really.
Hey, you meet her once. Been there, done that. You don't need to meet her again.
And my mother used to tease me. My mother would say, you know, I have a sister Louise who's in the military, the big-time military, you know, British military. And your sister's met the Queen twice. You've only met the Queen once. What are you waiting for? It's great, though.
It's a great one to end it on, too. It's Peter Noone, Herman's Hermits, a life like he's had, and outdone in meeting the Queen by his military sister. What can you say? It's a lot of fun having you on the show. Hope you have a great run at the Blue Note.
Thank you. I will do. Thanks, Dave. Thanks a lot for the show.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Woke up this morning